Hey guys, it's Haniya Ray. I normally talk about plants on my channel, and today I was going to do something different. I wanted to talk about my coral reef tank. I'm fairly new to the reefing hobby, and I'm still learning. Yeah, that's a dead bird's nest. And right next to it, that's a dead torch coral. To back up a little bit, before I moved, I had two 5-gallon nano tanks, and now I'm upgrading to a Fluval Evo 13.5. My corals are in a temporary holding tank along with all of my cleanup crew, and I thought I'd start mixing up some salt water just to get this process going and transferring out of the temporary tank. At least I have already cycled live rock, so I'm gonna try to start moving it into my Fluval Evo. I know that rock placement is super important right now because this will form the base layer of my nano reef. Just to make sure I don't kill off any bacteria, I'm gonna start covering the rock with newly mixed salt water. I don't want the rock out of water for too long, otherwise whatever amphipods or other critters on there might start to die, and I don't want that because most of them are beneficial. I might have to mix up another 5-gallon bucket. Can you see Dottie in the background? After placing my first two rocks, which I'm hoping will create a stable base for my tank, I decided that I needed to add my heater. The heater is important for keeping the water the same temperature, especially while it's cycling around your tank. For coral, a temperature degree swing can mean the difference between life and death, and that's how I think I actually fried my bird's nest and torch coral, unfortunately. Since the tank isn't full yet with water, I decided to put the heater in the main display. And the reason for that is because the water's not circulating yet, the pump isn't on because the water's not all the way up. This way, at least some of the water will be heated while I get everything else in place. After messing around with the rocks for a few minutes, I decided on a classical triangle shape because it's easy for design, so why not? For my sand, I decided to go with Carib Sea's Arig Alive. It's pretty standard, it's in nearly every pet store. If you're not aware, live sand is probably one of the best things that you can do for your tank. The amount of beneficial bacteria and small organisms that eat detritus and other things in your sand. If you have a bare bottom tank, that's just not as possible, and it's just a great filtration system. I do like the look of bare bottom tanks, but because I'm so new to reefing, I decided to just go with sand because I think it'll keep my coral healthier for much longer. Since I don't have coral in the tank right now, it's just live rock, I decided I'm just going to dump my sand pretty much everywhere and not really worry about it because I'm not super concerned that my coral's gonna get irritated with sand stuck in their mouths. If you've never built a reef tank before, live sand typically comes with a water clarifier that will help you get rid of this murky grossness that's going on right now in my tank. And this is the next day. Basically all gone. Now it's time for the fun part. I get to add coral to the tank. Since I use live rock, and since I used a good portion of the water from the temporary tank, I don't need to cycle the tank. There is some debate about whether coral need a tank cycled before you can actually add them to the water. There doesn't seem to be enough evidence that things like nitrates and nitrites actually harm the coral. So now I'm just going to place my coral basically in the areas where I know that they'll be most happy in terms of light once I get to adding my lights on top. This is a large polyp stony or LPS dominant tank. So my goal is to put most of them on the bottom of the tank because they aren't going to like a lot of light. The bird's nest, however, is happy at the top. So I'm just going to leave them right up there. The coral with the cups around them are actually new pieces that I just bought to try to replace the sad guys that I accidentally killed. I actually had to bring my coral up in 2 batches. I did not realize I had this much coral in the tank. It just didn't seem like it. Here's a lovely fox coral that I'm going to move in right now. He's still recovering and he's not happy with me that I took him out of the water, but I'm hoping he'll expand fully after this. It looks like my acans are already coming out at this point, which is kind of exciting. They don't seem to mind the natural daylight. Now I need to start working much quicker to put my coral in so that the temperature drop off isn't extreme. Like I mentioned earlier, coral are very sensitive to temperature changes, and if I leave them for too long in the bucket, I could potentially lose them from shock. So again, I'm just trying to move as quickly as possible without actually puncturing them or causing any damage. It's sort of nerve-wracking, if I do say so myself. Okay, so I've given these guys a couple of days to chill out and get more used to their surroundings. See, my acans have started to come out nicely. My chalice is looking a little better, maybe not perfect, but he's not losing all of his coloration. I don't see any casualties looking around the tank, so I think we're good to go. We could start gluing some of these guys to rocks. I'm going to use Cora Effects. It's pretty standard. And then these are Instant Ocean Putty Sticks. And I'm going to be cutting the coral on top of the paper towel just to make sure that my workspace is clean. Obviously pinchers to put them back into the tank. And then bone cutters for the parts of the frag rock or the coral frag plug. I'm actually going to start with my bird's nest because I'm so excited that I have another one so I can retry and regrow him. Let's get you out of this cup, buddy. So this bird's nest, I believe, was from Worldwide Corals, which typically sends their coral frags in little cups like that. I'm going to start by taking off the bottom of this frag plug. I don't really need it for my current setup. I'm not going to be putting them into any holes. So I'm just going to fit the bone cutters around the coral, and there we go. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. And to work quickly now, I'm going to make a frag plug sandwich, which is essentially going to be Cora Fix, which is the super glue. And we're just going to dab some of that super glue right on the bottom of that frag plug. So that we can then put the putty on just below that. The putty will be awesome for making sure that the coral affixes to a rock completely. If we didn't add the putty, it's likely that there wouldn't be enough glue surface area to keep the rock, or to keep the coral frag in place. So I'm taking my stick of putty and I'm just gonna rip a little bit off if I can. And the putty, really what you want to do after you get a small piece off is just start manipulating it with your hands, making sure it smashes together. And I believe this creates a chemical reaction that eventually allows the putty to harden very stiff. Cool. So now that it's nice and mixed, gonna put it on the bottom of my bird's nest coral, just like that, and we're gonna finish it off with another dab of glue. And now back to the tank, where we will place that bird's nest coral right at the top of the rock. Bird's nest corals in general prefer a bit more light than the other LPS large polyp stony corals that I have in this tank. So you should be enjoying light at this level. And I'm just going to squeeze it a little bit more to make sure he's secure in there and that some of that putty is stuck in one of the rock crevices. Looks good. So it looks like my guys have been puffing up and growing, which is really exciting. You can kind of see there's been some growth, which is also very cool. And I've added a couple more buddies. So I'm looking forward to maybe adding fish and some more coral soon. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I'll make sure to do an update video. Watch the plant videos while you're at it for me, and I'll catch you later.